As you know, we just finished a very important discussion regarding the relocation proposal by the Raiders.
There's a lot of ways to have awkward moments. Sometimes you fail to read the room and say something you shouldn't. Sometimes the awkwardness is from something more subtle. No one is immune from it, and even the greatest sports stars have had their own awkward moments throughout the years. So in this video, we'll have a look at slip-ups, unusual situations, and the most awkward moments in sports history. But first, a simple reminder on how to enter our brand new giveaway. We will be giving away either an iPhone X Max, the new iPad mini, or a MacBook Pro. It's all your choice. So be sure to leave a like, comment the keyword, subscribe, and turn on notifications to enter the giveaway. It's really that simple. First up is announcing your relocation ahead of time. Relocation is a controversial subject in sports. There's a lot of fans out there that think it shouldn't happen at all. While sports is undoubtedly a business in today's day and age, there's still a few things that are seen as sacred. One of those is a team's city. Players can come and go, after all, but the team playing for the same city lasts forever. At least it does until you throw relocation into the mix. Whatever you think of relocation in general, though, you have to admit it's awkward when the fans find out about the team's plans to move before it happens. The NFL's Oakland Raiders are a recent example. The Raiders are moving to Vegas and will start playing there this season in the new Allegiant Stadium. However, this was announced early on, and the plans of the team to move were known as early as 2015. For obvious reasons, this made things more than a little awkward for the fans back in Oakland that were still attending the games of a team that was actively planning to leave them as soon as a new stadium in Vegas is arranged. The move was a sure thing years before it actually happened, and for that, the Raiders earned their spot on this list for putting their fans in one of the most awkward positions possible. And they aren't the only team to do this, however. Another California NFL team did the same thing before the Raiders did. San Diego Chargers made the move to Los Angeles after not coming to a stadium deal that worked out, but a lot of fans believed the team was simply being greedy and chasing a larger market while refusing to pay up to stay in San Diego. As a result, the team's last season in San Diego before making the move to LA didn't come with much luster. Everyone knew what was going to happen after the season, and the only feeling running through the fans was betrayal. And for some, a strange relief that they were now released from following a long-suffering team. It's worth noting some countries consider relocation a bigger deal than Americans do. Many European soccer teams have been around in one location for over 100 years, and the relocation of European teams is rare, but when it does happen, outrage usually follows. MK Dons is one of the most hated teams in England, not because of anything they've done on the pitch, but because of their history. Before moving to Milton Keynes, the team was called Wimbledon FC and based 56 miles away from their current home. The Dons were moved to Milton Keynes in the face of massive protests from both their own fans and other fans around the league. And in 2007, they officially renounced the history of the former Wimbledon FC, spelling the end of an historic team which had existed since 1889 in the process. The lesson? If you're a rich businessman throwing your money around on sports, if you want to put a team in a new city, don't do it by moving an existing one. You'll make a lot of dedicated fans unhappy in the process. Next is learning about a trade after it's happened. As I said earlier, sports is a business. The teams are worth billions of dollars and owners invest a ton of money each year in paying the salaries of their star players. With this much money involved in sports, it makes sense that teams prioritize winning over sentimental value. However, even given this, some ways to handle trades are better than others. It's normally considered courtesy for a team to talk to a player in person before they trade him, or at least give him a phone call with a heads up that the player is about to be on a different team. That's not the case every time, though, and some coaches and general managers have opted to give players the silent treatment during the build-up to a trade. When that happens, a player might find out about the move from ESPN or even social media. This is what happened to NBA small forward Robert Covington, who was traded from the 76ers to the Timberwolves and found out about it on his phone. It was at the beginning of a 3-game road trip, and Covington was getting ready to leave his hotel room to warm up for the game when he checked his phone, revealing a flurry of new notifications. Notifications about a trade to Minnesota that Covington hadn't been informed of yet. Other players have had the same fate. Jared Dudley found out he was part of a 3-team trade between the Bucks, Suns, and Clippers when he saw the news of it come up on his Twitter timeline and realized the trade had his name in it. Kelly Oubre Jr. found out about his trade to the Suns after getting out of the shower following a game. The news was broken to him by his Washington teammates who saw it on Twitter. It's not the way that most players want to find out about leaving the team they've come to know, but at the end of the day, this just makes it all the more apparent that it really is a business. Teams aren't afraid to move on from players when they aren't viable anymore, even if it makes a pretty awkward moment when the player finds out from another source. The next awkward moment happened to every team at some point: bad referee calls. It's the job of the referee to ensure a fair game, and for the most part, that's usually what happens. Players will complain about calls, sure, but most of the time, there's none that are too blatantly out of bounds. Every once in a while, however, there's a call that gets attention around the league because of how bad it is, or because of its impact on an important game. One of the most famous times when a referee has picked up undue attention was during the 2012 referee lockout in the NFL. The league and the referees union couldn't come to a deal, leading to much maligned replacement refs taking the jobs of the usual ones. The most famous game that these replacement refs were involved in became known as the Fail Mary game for the infamous call at the end. The clock was winding down and the Seahawks needed a touchdown to beat the Packers on Monday Night Football. Their last resort was a Hail Mary pass down the field to Golden Tate, who went up against multiple Green Bay players to get the ball. However, when it was all said and done, both Tate and one of the Green Bay players were sharing the ball. The play was confusingly ruled a touchdown, and the game picked up nationwide notoriety for the performance of the referees who made the decision. The game had an impact on the league as a whole too, with the league getting their dispute with the union wrapped up quicker, in part thanks to the controversy surrounding the game. Super awkward for the Packers players, who were sure they'd get the victory via a last-second interception before the play was ruled a touchdown by the replacement refs. To add insult to injury, veteran referees who were currently on strike commented on the game after the fact. The consensus? It should have been an interception, which would have given the Packers the victory. Next up is awkward announcing. Announcers add a lot to the game. They help fans follow the action from home and help those who aren't as knowledgeable to know what's happening at any given moment. Sometimes, though, the announcers could use some work when it comes to their own knowledge. Jason Witten had a run as an announcer before making the decision to come back to the NFL for yet another season, and it was full of some awkward moments. Of course, Witten is one of the smartest tight ends when actually playing the game, but had a hard time making the jump from the field to the announcer's booth. Some of his analysis included the fact that the Texans run a pro-style offense, something that, given the NFL is a pro league, actually applies to every team. He also gave an ill-timed compliment to Mark Ingram at one point, saying that Ingram was getting better with age. Maybe it would have been a legitimate point if it wasn't for Witten's co-announcer speaking moments before about Ingram's suspension for PEDs. Another time, Witten pointed out a play as an example of what makes Todd Gurley so good, but the play in question was a run for a loss where Gurley lost yards instead of gaining any. For Witten, it seemed to be some bumps in the road and getting used to a new job, but for the fans listening back home on TV, many of these commentary slip-ups just ended up being plain awkward. Lastly, we have bad uniforms. Uniforms are one of the most recognizable things about sports. We all know the purple and gold of the Lakers, the pinstripes of the Yankees, the black shorts and red shirts of Manchester United, or the flashy neon yellows and greens of the Oregon Ducks. Not every team does a good job with uniforms though, and sometimes the uniforms became famous for the wrong reason. Especially alternate uniforms, which are much of the time more experimental than the main uniforms the teams wear for most games. We've all seen them before. The New Jersey Nets were a pretty good example of this in 1990 when they wore tie-dye uniforms featuring a pastel blue gradient and a very 90s-looking red Nets logo in the middle. During 1976, the Chicago White Sox also had a pretty notable contender on the list of the worst uniforms around. They wore shorts and tight, short-sleeved t-shirts for 3 games that looked more like uniforms out of soccer rather than baseball, likely confusing the other team and anyone who happened to switch over to the game on TV. Alternate uniforms can add some spice to the game, but like a lot of things, if you can't do them well, sometimes it's better not to do them at all. Anyways, that's all for this one. Thanks for watching this list of the most awkward moments in sports history. See you next time. But first, a simple reminder on how to enter our brand new giveaway. We will be giving away either an iPhone X Max, the new iPad mini, or a MacBook Pro. It's all your choice. So be sure to leave a like, comment the keyword, subscribe, and turn on notifications to enter the giveaway. It's really that simple.